Hey, I'm Cass. I'm the co-founder of Guru Running, and I'm here today with Richard Diaz, the creator of RunFlow.
Cool. I am.
All right, Richard. So something that's been on my mind a lot. I am a runner. I love running, but I'm also curious about other sports. Some of the athletes that I coach also play or entertain themselves with other sports. So I'm curious about run flow and how it translates across different types of training and different activities.
So they flirt with other sports.
They flirt with other sports.
But the real deal is they're running.
They are runners, yeah.
Yeah. So it's interesting you bring that question up because when I initially developed the concept of run flow, that you would refer to it as, at the end of the day, what my focus was is to find a way to defeat fatigue. And in all sports, that transcends. We want to be able to continue to perform at optimal levels for as long as necessary. And the real challenge that I found was dealing with athletes that are in the CrossFit space. So if you've ever seen a CrossFit competition or workout of the day, essentially it's about a 20 to 30 minute effort, and then they end up finding themselves lying on the ground completely blown out.
Yeah.
And for the most part, that's been represented as success. And when I look at it, being an outlier, I'm not a CrossFit person, to me I'm thinking, geez, wouldn't it be much more cool if you did the workout and just walked away from it and still performed as well as the guy that was lying on his back, assuming he's dying?
Yeah.
And so it becomes a function of energetics. It becomes a function of how well you can develop the energy systems. And this is also a massive problem for runners. So going as a model, let's talk about running a marathon.
Mm-hmm.
You go out too hard, 15 miles, 18 miles deep, you fail. It could be a function of you depleted your energy stores. It could be a function of you're so acidic from the lactate production that you can't continue without slowing down, stopping, recovering. But it's the same problem across the board in all sports. So me operating for the most of my career in the endurance space, this was a big challenge for me to work with these athletes that were completely contrary to my processes. And we found that by encouraging them to develop their cardio systems, and these would be short duration runs, it should be like a rowing machine, bike erg, assault bike, ski erg. All of these are cardio treatments that are a function of applying yourself to a level of intensity and obviously trying to promote as much product as possible. And so I introduced the concept of flow to them. Instead of just going as hard as you can until you can't, I had them specifically going in and progressively and regressively moving through a flow cycle. And we found dramatic success with that.
So what does that look like for a CrossFitter?
Well, so the workouts might not change. They might have 4 or 5 workouts or exercises that they're going to do that are traditional, but they fortify those workouts typically with some cardiovascular treatments. And so I may have them do all the workouts first and then follow up with a flow session. And the flow session would be on a very specific device. As a matter of fact, in the project that I did, I actually tested these athletes, a good many of them that were professional athletes in the sport. We tested them clinically on a rower, a treadmill, skier, etc., and looked at their thresholds and looked at the point of fatigue, and we looked at the perceptive efforts, and we looked at all that data, the load they put out, watts and whatever, and then we formulated a flow process for them. And we found dramatic success in this. Their resistance to fatigue went through the roof, and their capacity to continue to lift the loads they were before was doing really well. And so it was very good. Now that's like polar opposite of like endurance sports.
Yeah.
But I also work quite heavily in the obstacle course racing space. I coach some of the best athletes in the world in that space, and I've been involved with these athletes heavily for the past 5 or 6 years and have written programs for them. And we have programs that were obviously through my book, Training the Dark Side. We had supplemental pieces that went along with it. For example, I have a 30-day sprint distance template. Now, I don't really like templates. I don't really like trying to have people follow the dots.
Yeah.
I want their perception of effort to be very much involved in their processes. And so we encourage them to follow the template, but allow themselves the levity to regress when it was time to regress, progress when it was time to progress, and we've been seeing tremendous success with that. As a matter of fact, right now, one of the athletes I work with is unbeatable in the sport. He's won every race that he's done this year.
Yeah.
And obviously with COVID, it's been a difficult year for most of the athletes competing, but he's untouchable. He's so far ahead of the rest, specifically from his running talent. Mm-hmm. And he's been following flow concept training with me for the past 3 years.
Yeah.
And everybody remarks on what a great runner he is, how it seems effortless when he runs, and he's obstacle proficient as well. But at the end of the day, he's just very, very capable of producing great amounts of work with much less effort than these other athletes are putting in.
So this concept of flow and really looking at this as more of a guidance rather than a dictation to the athlete, right? Have you noticed any sort of commonalities or maybe differences between the different types of athletes you work with and their resistance or acceptance to this idea of flow training?
So that was an interesting question. We spoke of this just yesterday. The differences between Eastern and Western philosophies, where in our part of the world we're very self-judgmental. If we didn't accomplish a task, we failed.
Yep.
Where in Eastern philosophy it would be more like we're in the development stages. We're learning. So we didn't succeed, but it's a path. We're processing, okay? And I find that to be a very interesting departure between those two mindsets. And flow training embraces that concept. There's never a function of A to Z or point to point. It's always just kind of a flowing process. I'm not sure if I've answered the question.
It's a very circular process, but how do different types of athletes relate to this? Have you noticed that there's any sort of friction with
exactly. So the problem is because we're so stuck on what we do. Mm-hmm. You know, let's just say, for example, you're a well-established runner. You run faster than most all of your friends, or maybe even competing on an elite level. And along comes a guy that you never met before with this novel idea of doing something way contrary to traditional views, and me trying to talk you into changing what you do and, you know, embracing what I've taught you. And it takes outliers. It takes people that have this leap of faith to be willing to try something new.
Yeah.
Maybe it could be that you've been frustrated with your responses to training. You're not getting what you hoped from the work, and then you took it from there and you gave it a shot. But the advantage I've had with the athletes that I work with is they've known me from other spaces, where they've come to me for support on the way they move, clinical assessments to guide them in their training. And then from there, being able to release a product to them, they're much more willing to take a look at it.
Yeah.
Because it came from me and they know me.
You have that foundation.
Right. Now, dealing with the obstacle course racing community, I have a lot more trust in that community than I might in a CrossFit community. The running space at large, I really haven't been spending much time there in the last 10 years. So same problem I think I'll run into as I ran into with the CrossFit people. But then I get these people that do embrace the work, and then they find great success in what they've been doing, and then their friends find out about it, and then they try it, or they reach out to me, and then so I don't know how it's going to spill out, but I'm very confident that regardless of what the space is, whether it be a high intensity training space or whether it be an endurance space, ultra distance space, the concepts are fluid. They work well no matter where you take it.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly been the case for me. I've had an amazing experience with it, and all of the athletes that I work with have had a similar experience as well.
Well, so the advantage that we have through you is they know you, they trust you. And if it was good for you, it must be good for them.
Well, what's interesting is even just speaking about it, even people I don't know are really curious about it and coming to me. to learn more and to try it for themselves. And then once they experience it, they're hooked.
Yeah. Well, I know it works. And that's what really matters, is that if you throw something out there and you're not having any benefit from it, it's not going to last, right? And I found, I get people that were a little cautious, a little apprehensive, and then they get involved and they start, applying it. And it does take some faith, but you're not going to get the results you hope for just because you did it today. It's going to take a little time.
Right.
Because part of the thing that's really, really cool in my mind is the relationship you develop with yourself. When you start to realize that you're paying attention to the way your body responds rather than to what somebody told you should do. And that interrelationship between your perception, your effort from your perception, melded in with the clinical information I've provided, is a winning formula. It just does work.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah.
Thank you.